You're listening to The Vidaurri Effect with your host, Rudy Vidaurri, owner of the Apex Predator MMA Gym in Rancho Cordova, California, co-hosted by Jennifer Steele. Now here's Rudy. It's on.
My name is Sensei Rudy Vidaurri. I'm the owner and head coach of Apex Predator Mixed Martial Arts in Rancho Cordova, California. And this is the Vidaurri Effect. Kicking off with my first podcast, I wanted to say a few things. Wanted to help a few people and get a few things off my chest. So I want to thank Jennifer Steele for giving me the opportunity to do as such. And here we go. First thing I wanted to talk about today was conviction. And conviction to me means a lot of different things. But primarily, it means being decisive. And none of what I have accomplished in life would have been possible without having conviction, sticking to my guns, and seeing the things through that I believed in firmly. So conviction today, and if you look at the path that I've taken and where it's gotten me and where I was from, I can all trace it back to different moments in my life, different milestones that kind of created defining moments for me that ultimately led me to where I'm at now. And not trying to toot my own horn, but I've accomplished some good things. I got one of the best gyms in town, voted the best in Rancho Cordova, at least for 2022. You
can toot your own horn. Go ahead.
Here I am. I'm tooting my horn. Thanks, Jen. And, I'm a best-selling cookbook author, used to be a chef, and really, these were humble beginnings for me. This all started, martial arts as a kid, and then, as a lowly cook, ultimately I was told that fighting was never going to be something that I should stick to. It would just give me concussions and brain damage, part of which is true. But, there's a few brain cells left up there to help the hamster spin the wheel. At the same time, being a cook was something that I was told by a family member that was something that would pain them, quote, if they were to see me continue back there,
Sounds like me.
Yeah. Right. So, ultimately you have to have conviction to follow your passions, and that's something that I think is important for anybody, is to take pride in what you do, whether you are a cook, whether you are a martial artist, or it doesn't matter what you have going on with yourself. As long as you do your job right and take pride in it, that's going to take you a long way in life, because you never know what doors are going to open and what's around the next corner for that. And for me, I had day jobs. Martial arts wasn't always something that I was, bringing home a ton of bacon with, but it was something that I just never gave up on. Ultimately, after I lost my son a few years ago, a week after he was born, rest in peace, I decided that I wasn't going to waste any more time, that I was going to come back to the things that I love, because life is too short. And ultimately, it started with a backyard fight at a kegger between me and another cage fighter that kind of propelled me into realizing this is what I need to be doing. And then I came back to training seriously on my own and ultimately medaled at a big tournament, and then put me on the map to get an opportunity as a coach elsewhere, and then cut my teeth enough to open my own gym, Apex Predator Mixed Martial Arts now. The thing with the cooking is that my mom worked late hours after my dad died when I was 16, and I was left to my own devices with a fridge full of food and a couple of pans sitting around. So I really kind of was self-taught and had the opportunity to burn and destroy a lot of pieces of good fish and meat before I was able to correct my patterns, and ultimately trial by error created some pretty good cuisine for me. So, it was something that I just was passionate about. I've always loved the food. I've loved to eat and talk about food. And I think when you train, you get hungry a lot. So it kind of streamlines and goes hand in hand with that. So I ended up cooking a lot and started as small catering events for some of my mom's friends, and cool. Throwing little dinner parties, and taking way too long to cook everything, to then cutting my teeth in a good kitchen, and then working in the likes of Beverly Hills and in some pretty nice restaurants, and then ultimately becoming a best-selling cookbook author. Just sharing a little bit of my experiences. Wherever you're at, whatever your station is in life right now, I want you to think about and take an honest inventory for where you're at. And if you're feeling sorry for yourself, if you think that you could be doing better, or scratch that, in fact, if you think you know you can do better, I want everybody listening right now to think about what their strategy is going to be starting right now into tomorrow, into next week, and have the conviction to make a decision for yourself that you're going to change whatever it is you're doing for the better, because the time is now. There is no better time than now. And if you wait and you continue to find excuses to avoid success because you're afraid that you're going to fail, then you might as well go crawl under a rock and live the rest of your life being not competitive and not having the courage to face every day. You know, that's something that ultimately you're going to have to face in life, is failure. And none of what I've accomplished would have been necessary, once again, if I didn't fail too. Because failure is something that you have to face and learn from and overcome, because it's going to test how badly you want something in life. You know, I have learned to not let my life dictate me. I have learned to dictate the pace of my life. And I think when you take that first step towards taking control of your life, as pain in the ass as it must be, you know, it's a beautiful thing, because then you can live with your decisions and be at peace with those things despite the odds, because you know you're at least taking a step towards bettering yourself, towards bettering your situation. You know, I think something that's lost these days is the ability to have discipline, conviction, and stick to your path. Because despite the odds, if you want something bad enough, you will find a way to make it happen. You will manifest it. You will visualize it happening first. And then if you start to believe it enough, it will come to fruition. I think the way that things are right now, and it's not any one person's fault, but it's just the social conditioning of what we see based on social media and different influences and sources that people rely on for their stability, for their emotional well-being. I think it's conditioned to people to be soft. You know, I'm an old school coach. I'm an old school sensei. I don't take any shit. I've lived my entire life like that. And I instill that in my students. But also not to let them be their own worst enemy. I think we live in a day and age where it's okay, and people are told that they don't have to do anything that's too difficult for them, or that if it's outside of their comfort zone, it's okay to quit. It's okay to give up, you know, and they'll find A, B, and C reasons why it's bad for somebody's emotional health to put them through trauma or stress or things that are difficult. But one thing that I found is that the only way you build character is by pushing through those things that are hard in life. And unless you have the merit to continue your course, you never really know who you are, because you're never really going to know what you're made of unless you push through those things that are difficult, push through those things that are hard, you know. And I sit in front of somebody today that I admire greatly, Jennifer Steele. Always listen to her show.
Thank you so much.
And I know she has similar, you know, circumstances, and that she's pushed through things in life that haven't necessarily been easy, and she wouldn't be where she's at today otherwise.
Yeah, you know, that I had to visualize a lot when I was first starting in radio. I mean, it was hard as a woman in radio too back then.
Oh yeah.
But I pushed it, and I did morning shows, and I worked at KFBK, and I'm at K Hits now, which is a really fun radio station to be at.
Oh yeah.
And that I'll always be happy about that, because that's how I met Rudy.
I'll be happy about this. I'm forever grateful for this, that I called in. I think the question was, is there something that you did as a kid that you now do as an adult, whether that you turned into a job or whether it was a hobby or something to that effect? And I called in and ran my mouth for a few minutes, and she was gracious enough to publish that on the air. And now I sit here in Cat House Studios with her, and it's just a true honor. You know?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You know, that kind of brings me to my next subject is, you know, there's things that we have gratitude for, different moments, like we talked about, the defining moments in life that kind of propel us to where we are, you know, and we can look back on those single moments sometimes that kind of give us different opportunities or open different doors. One thing that I also had to kind of learn throughout the entire process as I bumped into different obstacles or bumps in the road or small failures that helped me overcome was the ability to get over those small bumps real quick, having no regrets. Because sometimes you get all amped up, you feel great about the direction you're going, and then all of a sudden there's a little test or there's a little challenge because you're like, hey, I'm going to go start my life over and I'm going to start kicking ass. And all of a sudden there's something that's like, hey, big guy, let me remind you that you're not there yet, And sometimes you're like, oh, should I have done this? Should I, and once you start getting caught up in that thought process, it can be overwhelming real quick. And then one bad thing's happen, another bad thing happens, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in what I call quicksand. And all of a sudden you're in this mindset where nothing can go right, and all of a sudden everything starts falling apart quickly. And I also, talk about that in fighting where, everything's going really well, and then all of a sudden you get caught, you're rocked a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're against the cage, you're against the ropes, or you're down on the mat, you're on your back and you have to find your way out of there. But you have to understand there are going to be mistakes in life. There are going to be different things that are not going to be perfect, and if you hold yourself to the standard of perfection, you might as well just give up now, because that's not life. That's not anybody. We're human. Nobody's perfect. So that brings me back to the no regret. I want you to understand that throughout this process of life, whatever it is you're doing, that naturally there will be speed bumps. Naturally there will be hiccups. Naturally there will be setbacks that you must embrace with all of yourself, because if you don't, those are the things that are going to break you down. But if you look at those as character building moments to overcome, and you actually look at the setbacks too as defining moments that you can overcome, only through the pain will you learn just how beautiful it is on the other side. So, no regrets. I think when you can start living your life with no regrets, despite what you're dealing with, whatever you're going through, and realize that you're probably not the first person that's going through those things, and certainly not the last, I think it makes for a much more peaceful process. And if you can be at peace with yourself, it's going to help you have the freedom without the worry to succeed. And that's something that really kind of I had to arrive with to open myself up to succeed. My 20s, in large part, my early 20s, I was, for the most part, a fuck up, And I'm I'll even say that, I'll be the first to admit that. I was out of college pretty quickly, didn't realize my potential there. I messed up my sports opportunities. I was a nationally ranked swimmer. And it took a few near-death experiences, self-inflicted, not suicidal, but, substance abuse, wrecking cars, destroying relationships. It took several of those to make me realize just how beautiful life was. Once you start to understand just how delicate it is, once you start to understand just how quickly it can all be taken away, I think then and only then do you realize, okay, this is not some 80 years given to, for any one person, that there's a process where you go to school, you go to college, you get out, you get married, you drive a nice car, you buy a house. Life can take twists and turns that nobody can predict. And once I started to really get the picture that, yes, I am mortal. Yes, I am vulnerable. Yes, it can all be taken away in the blink of an eye. It kind of changed my outlook, and I was okay with my mistakes and my failures at that age because I knew I had the rest of my life to go redeem myself. I was able to redeem not going to school. I was able to redeem my failures and not living up to my potential as an athlete then, because I came back twice as hard, and it built the character for me to succeed 10 times what I would have should I not have suffered those circumstances at an early age. Part of it for me, I lost my dad when I was 16 to stomach cancer, and that threw me for a loop. I started hitting the bottle real hard, looking for a way out. I was angry, I was violent, and ultimately I think anybody who's ever had to deal with that kind of thing is going to feel those things naturally. One thing that I want people to understand, especially you young people listening, is that you don't have to feel sorry for yourself. When you lose something, when you lose someone, you can honor them. You can honor their life with yours. And you don't have to be sad or angry or self-destructive in order to show that you are caring enough in the grieving process for them. You know, I felt as though that was my obligation. I felt as though that was something that I had to do to let the world know that I missed my dad. But in the end, it only set me back, and it almost killed me. So self-pity, you know, as we talk about conviction, self-pity is something that is only going to put you in quicksand, like I talked about before. Feeling sorry for yourself is something that you have the complete control to change. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people get stuck in, this happened to me, poor me, I might as well not do this because it's just going to happen again. And I think when you start to get caught in that mindset, you miss the other opportunities right in front of you. And if you stop looking at life in that one dimension, you start to look at it in the multiple dimensions that it is, the different layers that be, it's much easier to see the beauty around everything that you're dealing with and focus on those things. So my other challenge to people, anybody who's listening, for the cheap seats, I want you guys to look and pick something in your life right now and focus on something that's beautiful. It might be a person. It might be something you can look forward to tomorrow. Maybe it's a meal that you saw watching a commercial that you want to create for yourself. Go do something that you can look forward to. Create things that you can look forward to on a daily basis. Create something you can look forward to this evening. Create new opportunities for yourself. Have the conviction to make decisions to do better. Contact somebody you haven't in a while that you've been thinking about, that you know you could do better with. Send them a text. Just say hi. You don't have to explain why you've been absent. Just reach out. Foster the relationships that you know are good for you, that are healthy for you. A person that's going to make you feel good, that's going to be good for you. You know, maybe it's a relationship you guys had, you know, somebody that you know you made a mistake with, but you just have too much ego to reach back out and say you're sorry. Admit you were wrong, you know. Part of life, part of martial arts, part of how I streamline both of them is tying in the training with what we do in life. Stepping outside our comfort zone on the mat so we can step outside our comfort zone in life with people to be our best. But the one rule I have at my dojo is to check the ego at the door. Because it's going to help you learn more. It's going to help you be better. It's going to open things up for you. If you're so worried about losing all the damn time, you're not going to be free to win. Because you're going to be so worried about looking bad. Looking like you're less than. Looking like you don't belong. Instead of being okay with that, humbling yourself, and having the gratitude just to be in the conversation. Just to learn. You know? And that's something that I think with people sometimes everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants to feel like they had the advantage, that they had the last word. And in relationships sometimes it's something that people lose sight of, is that it takes two. You know, and you have to be really looking at it as teamwork, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a relationship, whatever it is, that it's two people involved. It's not just you. It's not just them. So having the conviction to do better for yourself in your friendships and in your relationships. Take an honest inventory of where you're at with your lover, your spouse. Honest inventory of where you're at with your friends, with your best friend, with your acquaintances. Assess. See who's worth it. And see who's not. Because the people that aren't, maybe they're jealous of you. Maybe they resent you deep down. Maybe given the opportunity, they would sabotage you. And maybe there's people that you've ignored or you've treated poorly, or somebody that you let go or that you broke up with for all the wrong reasons that you could be keeping closer, that you could be repairing things with. And you need to start now either fostering the relationships with the people that are going to do better for you, and starting to move away from the people in your life that are toxic. You don't owe anybody anything. And that's something else that you have to remember in relationships, in life. You have to be happy with yourself. You have to look at yourself in the mirror every day And you have to think, is this the person I want to be? And if you can honestly answer that question right now, yes or no, have the conviction to make that decision today. If the answer is yes, hey, great. Rock on. If it's no, you need to be doing everything in your power, every waking minute of every damn day, to make sure that you're out there moving in the right direction, making progress, and making peace with the decisions that you've made before, so those aren't holding you back anymore. What do you have to say, Jen?
I think in any part of your life that's true. I think that when it comes to, just like you said, relationships or situations or friends or maybe bosses even, there might be people dealing with a bad work situation. Same thing. I think any part of your life that's in turmoil is probably not a healthy thing, right, overall?
Yeah, and that toxicity bleeds into other things, because it's one of those where you can say it's not a distraction and you can learn to cope. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, there are certain things that once you separate yourself from them will make all the sense in the world for why you feel free, why you feel happy, why you're doing better. And until you're separate from those situations, you don't understand just how bad they are for you.
It can be real scary at first too, probably, because you think, I can't be without this person. I can't live without this person. What am I going to do without this person? And to shake up your comfort zone, like you said, is a challenge for sure, and probably not one that many people really want to take on.
Coming back to what I said about stepping outside the comfort zone, that is incredibly important, because sometimes people get reliant on somebody, and they get codependency, or they feel as though they owe somebody something, and they get stuck in a pattern where they don't know what it is to step away from somebody that they've been controlled by for so long, or a situation where they may have safety because they're making an adequate income, but they're not realizing their dream. Once again, the conviction, the ability to not be afraid of success, the decisions that we make, those definitive moments in our life where we decide that we are no longer going to settle for less or take the shit that we've taken for so long and move forward. And that starts now. It starts for anybody in this very moment. And without the regrets to think, oh, well, I should have done this sooner. I could have, those are all things in hindsight that you can just wash your hands of, because right now is the time. It has nothing to do with the past anymore.
Yeah, and I think, too, that if you think back in life at different situations that you have left, maybe, and you didn't know how you were going to ever do it or how you were going to make it through tomorrow, and then something happens, that just sort of wouldn't have happened if you hadn't left that situation, that just makes it all exciting and better again, like you're going in a different direction and it's cool.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes, you can look for the signs. There's these small little tidbits, little gifts from the gods that will show you that you're on the right course. You may be terrified, you may be completely overwhelmed, anxious, stressed out, concerned about what's next. But unless you're following your heart, you need to understand that the safety of having something that's not good for you, even though it's providing enough to get you by, versus the fear while on a righteous path, can be something that you have to make up your mind as far as what it is you want. It's either one or the other. You're going to either be a little uncomfortable, but doing what you know is in your heart the right thing and following the path that you want to follow, or you're going to be conforming to what you know is safe, but never going to take you to where you want to be.
It's funny, when I first started off in radio, I worked in a morning show situation with a partner who was not very, he wasn't a good partner. And I knew that if I stayed there, it was going to be, career suicide. And I at some point, woke up and said, I can't do this anymore. And I was really new in the business, and it was kind of a like big radio station to be at. And I said, I can't do it anymore. I can't work with this person. And so I left. And the very next day that I left, I got a call from someone in Sacramento, because I was commuting to Modesto to do that job. Mm-hmm. And I got a call from someone in Sacramento, and they asked me to come work for them, because he had heard through somebody else that I had left this radio station. So again, totally scary to drive out of there, not knowing what I was doing in my career, but it worked out for me in the end.
I'd say.
Yeah.
You know?
I guess so.
and part of it's an adventure, you know? I think sometimes people take themselves so damn seriously. You know, I'm going to tell you what, despite everything that I've done, I sure don't. You know, I may take the things that I've done sometimes seriously, or take a moment to reflect back and really appreciate, but like, you know, if you're putting all your eggs in one basket, like, you know, here I am and I'm on, it's like, have fun with it.
Yeah.
That's the whole point for everybody, all you listeners. You know, it doesn't also have to be about, you know, this huge decision, life-changing this or that. It can be like, hey, you know what? Kind of fed up with this situation. I'm going to go check something else out. You know, rock and roll. If it works out, it doesn't. If it doesn't, great. You know, people that know me pretty well also know I'm kind of a wise ass, you know, so I have no problem laughing at myself if something doesn't work out. It's like, well, shit, you know, it wouldn't be the first time. It certainly won't be the last, but at least I tried.
Yeah.
You know, putting yourself out there, you know, it's something that I think more people need to practice. I know that in this day and age, I got a lot of kids coming into my dojo. Their parents are fed up, you know, and all they know is their iPad, their iPhone, everything at the press of a button. They don't even know how to make eye contact. They don't know how to hold a decent conversation. And they sure as hell don't know how to throw a punch.
Yeah.
You know, and they're afraid to even try. And they come in and I'm like, well, why are you here? Because your parents want you here? You know, what do you have to offer? Who are you? You know, and once I kind of break them out of their shell, like some of these kids are actually children. They're not robots programmed by, you know, Apple. They're actually...
Yeah.
You know, these are actually human living kids that have feelings. And once they put themselves out there, it's a huge awakening for them. So that's the thing. You know, I'm going to ask you right now, anybody listening, are you awake? And I don't mean awake in the sense of the word. I know you probably are like 3 coffees deep. Mm-hmm. You know, you've probably been running around all day. But I'm talking about awake in the sense of your own self-awareness, your own station in life, who you are, what you do. And if I was to ask you this question right now, who are you? Could you honestly answer that question without telling me anything about your job, your car, the football team you like? Go Jags, by the way. Or anything other that has to do with material possessions or stuff that's really not relevant to the bigger picture of life. And the reason I'm asking you all these questions today in my very first episode is because these are things that I once had to ask myself. And I once had to really be serious with myself about who I was and where I was going before I had to change it up and do some things that were going to be much better for me, for my emotional health, for my body, for my relationships, for my future, for all the things that we've talked about here today. And, you know, Jen, I know that I haven't said this yet, but I want to thank you. Oh. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for wanting to do a podcast. I think that you make an excellent life coach, for lack of a better term, because of everything that you've been through.
Well, that's
and
perfect.
Who better to learn from than somebody who's been through it, right?
Yeah, you know, experience is the biggest textbook I can offer, you know, to anybody who survives the things that I have and has gone through the things that, you know, not just me, but a lot of other people have gone through. You know, school is great. School gives structure. It offers different subjects. It's a chance to meet people, you know, and give you a sense of accomplishment from finishing something. But the degree in your hand, the diploma in your hand, is only worth the ink that's written on it. Because everything that you're going to experience in life, everything that you're going to do, all the hard lessons learned are ultimately going to be the things that define you, that shape you, that teach you how to survive. If I was to take 90% of the population right now and drop them in the middle of the woods with only a blade and enough clothes to keep them warm through the night, I think people would completely fall apart.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And I think people need their own self-inflicted reality check, I'm not saying go and learn the hard lessons, subject yourself to addiction and all the other things that I had to overcome intentionally. No, I'm not saying, go crack open a 30 pack right now and let's go learn some life lessons, right? That's one way to do it. But I'm saying have the conviction to challenge yourself outside of your comfort zone. Do the things that are difficult. Put yourself in situations that you know you will be better for despite what it feels like in the moment.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Not bad.
Not bad at all.
The Vidaurri Effect is a Steel Voices production. Recorded, produced, mixed, and engineered at Cat House Studios by Jennifer Steele. Hosted and created by Rudy Vidaurri, owner of the Apex Predator MMA Gym in Rancho Cordova, California. More info and full episodes available at apexpredatormma.com, steelvoices.com, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening to The Vidaurri Effect.